On women, sexuality, and shame. It's a big one. I mean, just last week I was talking about modesty, and now here we are again. And this time, people are upset with Chloe Bailey. Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for stopping by. Again, if this is your first time, please click that subscribe button, and I hope you enjoy this video. So Chloe Bailey, for those of you who don't know, she's the other half of the phenomenal group Chloe and Halle. So she's in this group with her sister. I mean, they're incredibly talented vocalists. They play musical instruments. Their performances are always on point, and more importantly, they have the Beyonce cosign. Like, they've got Parkwood, supporting them, so they are solid. So over the past couple of weeks, we've been entertained, with the Busted Challenge and the Silhouette Challenge. And honestly, it's been really amazing. Like, the level of creativity that people have just blows my mind. I mean, firstly, what, people are able to do with their needs. I'm just like, wow. Then it's the hair and the makeup and the clothing and, the creative ways people are transitioning in and out of these things, honestly, has been a lot of fun. So Chloe decided that she was going to take part in these two challenges for herself, and it got really, really weird. So just to backtrack a little bit, a while ago, Chloe and Halle decided that they were going to have their own Instagram accounts, and I thought it was a great idea. As a fan, I thought, oh, this is fantastic, because it'll be a way for them to showcase, their individuality, like who they are as people, and just, a great platform for them to explore all of that, and for us, I think, just to get to know them as individuals and outside of the group. So on Chloe's account, she started posting, pictures that were very, more sensual and a little bit more grown, and I personally thought, like, well, this is great. Here we have a young woman who's growing up, and I honestly thought that it was a great thing, and it appeared that people thought it was a great thing as well, until she posted these videos where she was taking part in the challenge, and that's where things got really weird. I think it's worth mentioning that people need to remember that Chloe was already being sexualized because of the shape of her body. Like, people were already doing the most when it came to Chloe, especially in their performances and the their videos and the pictures that they would take. So what was interesting to me is that when Chloe then decided that for herself, she wants to own more of her sensuality and her sexuality, and she wants to showcase it at her own pace, in her own way, that people got really, really upset. So of course the modesty police was out in full force, and when I tell you they were calling her everything but a child of God over these 15-second video, I couldn't believe it. People always find ways to be unnecessary. I mean, even when I think about the Silhouette Challenge, there were so many black men online who were talking about, how can we remove this filter? Now, I'm sure that, a lot of you have seen this challenge, and they were talking about that red filter that happens with the transition. Like, what? I even saw a guy basically saying that him and his friend had developed this app that was going to allow them to be able to remove this filter, and I guess expose women who were deliberately concealing certain parts of their body per the challenge. It's just weirdo behavior, because I'm like, of all of the places and ways that you can access images and videos and all of that, you get your jollies by violating consent. It's strange. And that's the thing with these types of challenges. We can always expect black men to come in and ruin the fun. But in the case of Chloe, there were also a lot of black women who were joining in, I guess, the shame train. There were a lot of different tweets and a lot of different things that, people were saying in regards to that. But the one tweet that really had me going, yikes, was this one. So let's just stop right here. Internalized misogyny is a real thing, and we see it in the way that women treat other women and even minimize other women, and women who have a gender bias in favor of men and the patriarchy that they hold so dearly. We also see it in a way where women belittle other women who they deem, not classy enough and therefore not worthy, unlike them. And all of this is done for the male gaze and male approval, hence the title, Pick Me. These are the same women who will absolutely fume when they see a woman that they deem unworthy get chosen, because that seems to be like the ultimate to get chosen, because they will feel that, you know, women who are like that, or women that they other, you know, are not deserving of that, and them, because they are, you know, the better woman, you know, they're the more respectable woman, and therefore they are deserving of love, companionship, and respect, you name it. Let me say this: doing anything for the male gaze will have you out here saying wild things like this: men are not the prize that you think that they are. And hating other women in order to elevate yourself in the eyes of these men will never be the wave. Absolutely not. And the sooner that you guys realize this, the better it will be for the rest of us. And before people even talk about, you know,
why even do the challenge if you don't want your nakedness out there?
First of all, their nakedness was not out there. And even if it was, it's not for you to then take these images to try and shame women. Because what? Now suddenly we have to be like, well, you know, if they didn't want the filter removed and their whole body on the internet, they shouldn't have done this. Look, we're not doing that blaming chat. We're not having that conversation. We've had it before. We're not doing it anymore. And at this point, if you don't know, also with that tweet, to call someone that word and then to say that they serve no real purpose in the world, that is wild to me. Like, at this point, bro, just say that you don't like it when black women have fun in a way that you deem, you know, is not respectable. Just say you hate women and be done with it so we can go. Because all of this extra chat is unnecessary. Like, you should not be this pressed about this. Like, get a hobby. And here's also the thing with this whole modesty chat. People have a problem with modest women too. Let's not act like people were not out here making fun of Ayesha Curry and calling her all types of, you know, typical Christian boring woman. You know, look at the way she dresses, you know, and Steph Curry must probably be so tempted when he's out, you know, playing basketball because he sees all of these baddies. Like, people were really coming for Ayesha and her marriage. So what does this tell me? It tells me that sexuality and its expression thereof exists on a spectrum. There are women who are like Ayesha Curry and there are women who are like Chloe Bailey. And the truth of the matter is that none of these women are the problem. The problem is you. Fact of the matter is that people are going to judge you regardless of whatever it is that you're going to do. So just do whatever you want, because here's the thing: in this game of patriarchy and this world that we live in, you cannot win. It sets up these unattainable rules that then other women jump on and then use to hate other women for. It's exhausting. It's no different than the Madonna whore complex, right? So this idea that a woman's humanity fits neatly into these two boxes. So you're either the Madonna or you're the whore. You know, you're either pure or you're tainted. You know, it's either you're nurturing or you're depraved, whatever it is. And all of this just fuels patriarchy. And because of internalized misogyny, you have women who then take on these things and then use them to judge other women, to belittle other women, and to make themselves better than other women. In the midst of all of this, you know, Chloe really didn't have much to worry about because the defense force came out swinging. I saw someone say that Chloe should have just told everybody that, you know, Beyonce knows her name and has her number and Beyonce likes her. Like, that would have just deaded the conversation. But what was interesting to me is that I think, you know, people who were shaming Chloe, you know, were expecting that other people were gonna jump in and sort of join in the shaming as well. And I'm glad that that didn't happen, because I feel like now more than ever, women are, you know, learning and developing shame resilience. Shout out to Brene Brown. The idea of shame resilience, very simply, is just this idea that, you know, you can name shame, you can process it, and then you can let it go, right? Where it no longer then changes how it is that you feel about yourself. Because let's just be honest here, women get shamed for all sorts of things. You know, we get shamed for our bodies and what they look like if they don't fit a particular ideal. We get shamed for our emotions, for our sexuality, for our desire, all of those things. And it's been a great thing to see over the years, you know, that women are getting to the point where they're developing that resilience to say that you can shame me and all of these things are going to happen, but I'm not going to change how it is that I feel about myself. And I think it's important, you know, just for the benefit of self, and I think just as a way to be able to move on from things in a way that we're stronger and better for, you know, when we don't allow, you know, the shame to be a thing that defines us or even change us. But no, truly, the defense force had me laughing. Like, I saw someone say something about like jean skirt Twitter, and when I tell you wow. And here's the thing, the point about all of this is that when you're deciding these things, I think it's important that you decide them for yourself and not to try and please other people, because whether you choose to be modest or not, you know, that's for you to decide. Because I personally don't care what it is that people decide to do, which is why I always find it so interesting when people get so pressed about, you know, the decisions that people choose to make about their lives. Because I'm like, here's the thing, no one is asking you to do anything, no one is asking you to pay anything, it's not costing you anything, like it's not putting your life in danger, it's not, you know, diminishing your quality of life in any kind of way. So I don't understand why you're this bothered about what it is that other people are doing. Because you for yourself, you know, you do what you do based on your own convictions and the way you want your life to go, and other people are doing the same thing. So, and I think it's also worth mentioning that when we're talking about Chloe, we're talking about a girl who is a pop star, who's an R&B star. Like, she's a young woman. She's not doing anything where there's a prerequisite for this modesty that everyone keeps talking about. Like, she's not your worship leader. Stop. So whenever these challenges pop up, you know, there's always like a group of men and women who talk about like,
why don't we have a let's see what book you're reading challenge?
Let me tell you something. Whataboutism, I hate it. Because the way it works is that people use it as a way to shut women down. Because here's the thing, if there are things that you want to see and, you know, things that you want to be able to participate in that you're currently not seeing, here's an idea. Create them. Because why must it always turn into Oprah's book club when women are having fun with their hair and makeup and nails and bodies? You know, it's almost the same thing when women, you know, are talking about abuse, that there'll always be some man who pops up and says, well, what about the men who get abused as well? Like, not a fan of it. Whataboutism, I'm hate it. The last thing that I will say, you know, for people who have grown up in the church, you know, and have heard all of the messages around, you know, purity and sex and modesty, which, by the way, modesty does not mean purity. I just wanted to put it out there, you know, and, you know, the idea that sexual desire and your sexuality, you know, is wrapped up in shame and all of those things. I think that's why when these types of conversations happen, people get tripped up. And before you come for me, this isn't to say that the church shouldn't be teaching about purity and modesty. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think that there is a way that we can do it that is better, that doesn't reinforce shame, that doesn't reinforce, you know, people being unworthy, that doesn't reinforce fear the way that it's been doing now. Because there are a lot of people who the way it's been done has been more harmful than it is been helpful. I can't tell you the number of articles and podcasts, you know, that I've listened to where Christian women talk about, you know, because of how, you know, their sexuality and their desires has always been wrapped around shame, that when they get married, they still feel that shame. You know, when they get married and they have sex, they feel dirty, you know, they feel unworthy, you know, they feel shame. You know, I remember this other woman talking about how when she got married, you know, on her wedding night, she couldn't help but cry because she was feeling like she was doing something wrong, you know. And I get it, like for a lot of people it might seem like, oh my goodness, those are extremes, but it's true, it does happen. And I get it, we can cover it up by saying, you know, the marriage bed is holy, so, you know, when you're doing it in your marriage bed, it's good and it's fine. But I think, you know, we have to acknowledge that before we get there, all the different messaging that is happening and the impact that it's having on people, we can't simply disregard that. And for me also, I will say that I personally think, that when it comes to sex education, the church hasn't really done a good job, especially when you consider the fact that the church wants to be involved in sex education. I mean, when you consider, you know, the young people and the young adults, you know, when they want to have conversations about sexualities, you know, their desires, their thoughts, and the things that are happening, more often than not, they're always met, you know, with the same kind of like, you know, pray about it, you know, kill your flesh, you know, death to self, you know, all of that. And, you know, it's just bad, it's wrong, don't do it, you're gonna regret it, like it's gonna be the worst thing of your life. And I'm like, that's not really what people are interested in hearing, because they're saying, this is where I'm at and these are the real things that I'm going through, and I really need real practical ways in order to deal with this. Thing of saying, you know, let's not talk about, you know, sex, and let's not talk about these topics because it's going to make the kids curious, or it's going to make them, you know, want to experiment, for the same reason that people, you know, think that sex education in schools is bad. The truth of the matter is that kids are already curious, you know, and kids are already tempted, and they're doing all sorts of things. And I think it does them a disservice if we don't have these conversations in a healthy way, you know, and conversations that talk about, you know, how to be safe and how to be protected, you know, and, you know, for Christian parents and the church, where we don't have conversations with kids that help them frame these things in a godly way. It does a disservice. And I think, you know, the head in the sand approach really doesn't work. It doesn't do, I think, what people imagine it does. I think more so, you know, when you look at the Bible, you know, it talks about, you know, train up your child in the ways that they should go so that they don't depart from that. And I think that, you know, training up your child is something that happens continually. You know, I don't think it's something that's just like, oh, you know, when you were training up your child, or you were teaching your child certain things, you know, maybe at the age of 8, you know, then that's it. I think when your children do grow up and they become these 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are about to go into varsity and all of these things, like, the conversation must change now. The conversation is a little bit different because they're not that 8-year-old that they were before. And I think just thinking that the way I told you and the way it is just the way it's going to be, you know, kids end up going out in the world and they are very unprepared, and they start to internalize these things, and it does, you know, sit and settle in their bodies in a way that's very, you know, fear-based, and just has a lot of shame around it, which I honestly don't think really is the point. I honestly do think that, you know, as a church, you know, us as the church, we need to do better about how we have these conversations, you know. And also when we consider how they then spill out, you know, as we see on social media, and generally when people do have these conversations around modesty and purity and all of these things, and, you know, of course, how it's always zoned in on women and their sexuality and their purity and their modesty, and how it's all wrapped up in shame. I honestly think we need to do better. But anyway, guys, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know some of your thoughts and your comments. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share the video with all of your friends and in-betweens. Thank you for watching. Bye.